In a winter afternoon, the second Prince Luoning lay reclining on a recliner in the study, holding a novel with gusto. He has liked reading since he was a child, and the books he read covers a wide range of books. In addition to literary masterpieces such as history and war, there are also some popular reasoning, science fiction, and romance novels. At this time, the clone project he held in his hand was a science fiction novel with particularly high sales in the past 2 years. This book tells the story of someone using gene replication to cultivate biological weapons. After the male protagonist was secretly extracted his genes, he created 5 replicas, and 5 replicas were sent to participate in a top-secret assassination plan. The plot of the novel is ups and downs. The characters of the 5 clones are portrayed vividly and profoundly, and the final ending is also heart-stirring. The sunshine outside the window was just right. Luoning could not help but sigh after watching the finale again. He put down the book and turned on the portable light brain to read today's news. As a result, a news on the homepage caught his attention: the movie The Replicant Project. It will officially premiere on November 11th. The sale of the movie copyright of this big fire novel was announced as early as last year, but when the author announced the news, everyone was very unhappy. As a loyal fan of the book, Luoning also felt that the movie would definitely destroy the original, because there was no one can play 5 roles at the same time. Many book fans are discussing on the internet, is it necessary to use AI technology to intelligently model? 3D characters are not real people after all, and emotions and eye expressions cannot be achieved by the system. I still want real people to play. Who is the real person? Dare to take this drama? Who can control 5 characters with different personalities at the same time? It will definitely destroy the original work if it is filmed. I'd better go to read the novel and wash my eyes. Luoning saw that most book fans didn't like this work being adapted into a movie, so he paid no attention to follow-up reports. Unexpectedly, the filming of the film was completed smoothly. He clicked into the official promotional materials and looked at it when he was curious. To his surprise, the director of this film was called Lin Wuxi. It was Uncle Ziwei's vest. There are too many members of the imperial royal family. Uncle Ziwei is undoubtedly the most special one. He is an Omega, but he does not have the fragility of Omega. Instead, he has a grumpy temper. No one can beat him when he starts with Alpha. He didn't get married until he was nearly 30 years old, and then he devoted himself to the entertainment industry and became a director. He didn't want people in the entertainment circle to know his identity, so he kept a low profile, using the pseudonym Lin Wuxi, and people in the circle called him West Guide. Several of Ziwei's works have been popular all over the interstellar, and the box office has a double reputation, and has won many celebrities and actresses. Moreover, he insists on shooting with real actors, never post-cutting pictures or making 3D actor models. He has always been highly evaluated in the circle. Many investors spend money to make him make a movie and he is too lazy to take it. He is willing to serve as the clone project. The director of, apparently took a fancy to the novel plot of this novel. As for the protagonist Qin Yi's, I haven't heard of it much. Luoning searched for Qin Yi's information under curiosity. Qin Yi's, male alpha, 28 years old, participated in several movies with high box office, personal Weibo fans more than 50 million, is a popular traffic star in the entertainment industry. However, the evaluation of him on the internet is mixed. His fans are numerous, his advertising endorsements are constant, and his popularity is booming, but he really has not won a significant award, so there are many black ironies that he can only rely on his face to eat, and has no acting skills at all. Following the clone project drama, he divided 5 personalities at once. Can he manage it? Luoning was puzzled and sent a message to Ziwei, "Uncle, I saw the news that the Replicator project is about to premiere. You are the director. What do you think of Qin Yi's acting level?" Ziwei quickly replied, "Why are you suddenly interested in the entertainment industry?" Luoning explained, I am a fan of this book. I read it 5 times, but I don't want my favorite character to be destroyed. Ziwei sent a smiling face and said, "Don't worry, I can't go wrong with the person I personally choose." Luoning was not very optimistic about film adaptations, but he looked forward to hearing this from his uncle. Regardless of what the outside world says, Ziwei's level as a director has long been recognized by the public, and Qin Yi must be selected by his uncle because of his acting skills. On November 11, Luoning deliberately asked his uncle for a ticket for the premiere, and drove the mech to the Central Cinema of Capital Star. He left the palace privately, not wanting to let people know the identity of his second prince, so he wore a casual outfit relatively low-key, and even disguised his mecha as an ordinary floating car. Nowadays, the internet in the interstellar era is developed. Most people watch movies at home and connect to the internet, and pay to watch them in virtual 4D network theaters. However, the premiere of each movie, the main creators and some special guests still gather in the theater. Watch it live. Luoning walked quickly to the VIP table, and he saw a familiar person, Ziwei. With a bright smile between his eyebrows, my uncle immediately waved his hand when he saw Luoning. "Come here." Luoning walked to him and sat down, and found a stubborn uncle sitting beside him. Ziwei took the initiative to introduce, "This is Mr. Cake, the original author of the Copy Man project, and the guest screenwriter of this film. This is my nephew." "He is Mr. Cake?" Luoning always thought that the person with such a cute pen name must be a cute boy or girl. He didn't expect to be a vicissitudes of life with a beard. Sure enough, the author's pen name is deceptive. Luoning complained in his heart, but kept a polite smile on the surface, and said, "Hello, I have read this book at least 5 times, it is so wonderful." The uncle touched his stubble and smiled and said, "Thank you. Your nephew, Director Xi, is so handsome. If you go to a TV series, you will definitely be a big hit." Ziwei glanced at Luoning with a hint of helplessness in his eyes. "My nephew only likes to read books and rarely watches movies and TV shows. This time I participated in the premiere because he is a fan of this book. Even acting is a fan of the book. Come on, I guess he's not interested in this, right?" Luoning nodded immediately, "Yes. I watched the movie because I like your novel." The uncle happily touched his beard, "Really? Then I will send you a few more sets of signature books." While chatting, suddenly a tall man walked over here, stood still in front of Ziwei, and said politely, "Director." Ziwei nodded towards the other party and introduced, "Yi Zi, let me introduce you. This is my nephew, a loyal fan of the original copy of the project." The man looked at Luoning, and Luoning also raised his head to look at each other. This alpha is simply the darling of the creator, and his tough facial features can't pick out a flaw. Nowadays, custard with double eyelids and big eyes are popular, especially popular male stars. Many of them will sell cute little meat, but this man is completely different. He is tall and strong, with sharp features and sharp eyes. Obvious single eyelids, long and narrow eyes, dark and deep pupils. Luoning has seen countless handsome guys since he was a child, but Qin Yi's looks and temperament are very outstanding, making people unforgettable. His face looked a bit cold, but his attitude was very polite. He nodded politely to Luoning and stretched out his hand, "Hello." Since his uncle's vest was called Lin Wuxi, Luoning also made up a name for himself like his uncle, smiled and shook hands with him, and said, "Hello, Mr. Qin, my name is Lin Luo." The man has a broad palm, which can completely cover Luoning's hand. The moment the man held his hand, Luoning only felt his scalp numb, and his heart began to beat fiercely uncontrollably. Could it be the influence of adult alpha pheromone? Many investors and other actors sat in the first row. Qin Yi greeted them and sat down beside Luoning. Luoning looked at his handsome profile, his heart beating faster and faster, and he didn't know what was wrong with him. He had never experienced such a thing before. Luoning took a deep breath to stabilize his mind, and said with a smile, Mr. Qin, as a fan of this book, I know that the show is very difficult, and you are really courageous to play 5 roles at the same time. Qin Yi said, it is precisely because of the difficulty that I want to challenge myself. Alpha's tone is calm, not too enthusiastic, but not too cold to make people feel embarrassed. Luoning smiled slightly, did not talk anymore, and set his sights on the big screen. He was looking forward to Qin Yi's performance in the movie. The movie begins soon. The first scene is a cold laboratory, restoring the scene where the male protagonist with special abilities in the novel is extracted to make a copy of the human. Since the author himself is a screenwriter, the plot is very reducible, and it is instantaneous. Bring Luoning, who is a book fan, into this world of science fiction. In the film, many of the early stage of the novel have been deleted, and the narrative rhythm appears to be more lively. In a blink of an eye, 5 copiers were sent to perform the task, and Qin Yi also began to show his superb acting skills. The 5 clones met unexpectedly during the mission. This is the most memorable group scene of Luoning in the novel. It is very exciting. I thought it would be unsightly after the film was adapted, but to Luoning's surprise, Qin Yi's played the role of 5 cloners with different personalities, and they acted in a good manner. He was often cold the moment before. A ruthless killing machine, the next moment he will be able to burst into tears because of the death of his companion's 5 personalities, switching flexibly without obstacles. If not for the protagonist himself, sitting next to him, Luoning would even believe that these are 5 different people. Up. At the end of the movie, the only remaining copyist went back to the research room to take revenge and killed the ambitious scientist himself. This martial arts scene was also wonderfully filmed. Qin Yi did it himself, and it was rare to show it on the big screen. The muscles and skills, especially the action of turning back and punching the opponent's nasal bone, are crisp, cool and handsome, and people can't help but be hooked. It's a pity that this story ends in tragedy, and the copyist finally decides to destroy it all himself. His face is full of blood donation, but his eyes are still calm and sharp. With a low and hoarse voice, he coldly said to the dying scientist, "I have no relatives, no friends, or even a name. I'm just a monster created by you. I can only listen to your orders. I shouldn't have my own thoughts at all, otherwise it's a dead end, but I don't regret doing this, because in the future, there will be no monsters like me in the world." With a light press of his finger, a loud bang came from his ear, and the entire research room was instantly swallowed by fire. At the end of the movie, it was the scene where he stood in the fire and smiled softly. The sad ending song sounded, and the headlights of the cinema lit up at the same time. There was thunderous applause and deafening. Luoning's eyes had already turned red, but he could only hold back tears. When reading a book, his favorite was The Last Replicant No. 5, which was affectionately called Little 5 by readers. At the end of the novel, many online readers were saddened by the death of Xiao Wu. Unexpectedly, Qin Yi actually performed Xiao Wu's complicated character with cold outside and hot inside, especially when he stood in the fire and raised his lips lightly. His smile can break the hearts of those who like him. With such acting skills, even die-hard book fans can't find the slightest fault. Luoning listened to the sad ending song, and couldn't calm down for a long time. After the premiere, the director invited everyone to dinner. As the director's nephew, Luoning was also lucky to have a meal with the past. At the dinner, Luoning quietly leaned to Ziwei's ear and asked in a low voice, "Uncle, can you give me Qin Yi's contact information?" Ziwei wondered, "What do you want his contact information for?" Luoning smiled harmlessly, "After watching the movie, I also became a fan of him, and I just want to make friends with him." Seeing Luoning's sincere expression, Ziwei said, "As far as I know, Qin Yi usually only cares about work and has few friends. I will give you the contact information in private. He may not be happy. Why don't you ask him in person? You have a thick skin anyway." Luoning still smiled, "Thank you, uncle, for the compliment." After he said that, he turned around and walked openly in front of Qin Yi's, smiled and stretched out his hand. Mr. Qin, I especially like this movie you played. I know that you have a lot of fans. From today on I am one. The young man in front of him is very handsome, especially the smiling face, which looks very gentle. Qin Yi met those warm eyes and stretched out his hand and said, Thank you, I'm very honored. Is it okay to make a friend? Luo Ning left his contact information to the other party and also got Qin Yi's number. It felt a little strange to approach an alpha initiatively for the first time. Maybe he just likes the movies played by Qin Yi's. Can he really fall in love with a strange alpha at first sight? After the dinner, Luo Ning quietly returned to the palace. He thought he would be unconscious, but he was stopped by the royal guard as soon as he entered the door. The person standing in the front had a serious face and a very unhappy tone. Where did you go all by yourself in the middle of the night? This person is his brother Luo Fei. The two are fraternal twins. They have been in a good relationship since they were young. However, after the marriage, the emperor's brother was busy with government affairs and spent less and less time with Luning. Luning didn't mind. Anyway, he couldn't finish it. Wonderful novels are not boring at all. Seeing that brother De Wang was angry, Luo Ning immediately walked to him and explained, I went to the premiere of a movie. Luo Fei looked at his younger brother suspiciously, movies? When did you become interested in movies? Luo Ning said, it's a film directed by Cai Weibo's father. It's called The Replicant Project. I am a book fan of this book, so I asked my uncle to ask for a ticket for the premiere. I want to see it first. His explanation was very reasonable. Luo Fei also knew that his brother never lied in front of him, so he believed his explanation, turned around and took him into the palace, sat down on the sofa, and said softly, I am looking for you today. In fact, it is what the emperor meant. You have been graduating for so many years. You have been in the palace and indulged in reading novels all day. If this continues, we are really worried about you. Luo Ning interrupted him directly, is you worried about my marriage? The true purpose was pierced by a sentence. Luo Fei had to touch his nose awkwardly, cough lightly, and said, you are the only Omega son of the emperor. Since you graduated from college, there have been many talented alphas who are interested in you. Marriage, I have helped you push it many times and found various reasons, but it is not a way to push it like this. You are already 25 years old, and you stay in the palace every day to read. Can your father be impatient? I'm really afraid of you reading too much, to see the illness. Luo Ning smiled softly, poured Luo Fei a cup of tea, and said calmly, no one stipulates that Omega must get married. Now we advocate marriage freedom. As a prince, I should set an example. For example, single for a lifetime. Luo Fei held his forehead with a headache, you hate alpha so much. Luo Ning shook his head, it's not that I hate alpha, but I am used to it freely. I really don't want one more person to control me. Luo Fei stared at him for a long time, and found that he didn't seem to be joking. In the end, she sighed helplessly and said, I don't want to force you, but I still recommend you to go out and get to know more friends. Go out for a walk and get to know more friends? Hearing this, Luo Ning's mind suddenly flashed. A fast man has deep features, handsome eyebrows, calm and sharp eyes, especially the handsome appearance of standing in the fire at the end of the movie, which is really unforgettable for him. Qin Yi is really an interesting person. There is no obstacle to the 5 roles, and his acting skills are admirable. Seeing that his brother was wandering, Luo Fei gently patted his shoulder, what do you think? Luo Ning came back to his senses and smiled and said, it's nothing, the emperor should go back and rest first. I will consider your suggestion. Luo Fei exhorted, I will help you with your father's side temporarily, but you can't continue to stay like this. Stay in the palace all day and read novels. Do you want to become the number 1 otaku Omega in the entire empire? Luo Ning nodded seriously, don't worry, I know it in my heart. Looking at the back of his brother leaving, Luoning put down his teacup thoughtfully and asked, Kang Luan, is my inhibitor deadline coming soon? Kang Luan is his portable smart mech, which was manufactured at the same time as the Zhongming mech of brother De Wang. It has been by his side since childhood and connected with him in spirit. It's just that Chongming has super combat effectiveness. Kang Luan has only the highest level of intelligent system and extremely fast flight speed, and its combat capabilities are very average. After all, Omega does not need to go to dangerous battlefields or deal with military generals. This configuration is enough for him to use. Hearing the host's question, Kang Luan immediately replied in a lovely childlike voice, it is due on December 1st. I will remind the host to give the injection in time. In half a month, the inhibitor will fail. No wonder today I am flustered after seeing Qin Yi's. It seems that it is indeed the effect of pheromone. Luoning quickly found a reasonable explanation for himself. However, he ignored the fact that there were so many alphas at the premiere. Why did he only react to Qin Yi's heartbeat? At the same time, the Capital Star suburban villa. The man dressed in home clothes leaned comfortably on the sofa, holding a thin, intelligent optical brain in his hand, watching the news on the internet with a calm expression. An excited agent Li Xin stood next to him. Today's premiere was very successful. Many media reporters gave you a very high evaluation of your acting skills. This time, the box office of the movie will surely explode. You must have your share in the Film King selection, and we can finally fight a good turnaround. A popular post, does Qin Yi have acting skills? Appeared on the homepage of the Imperial Gossip Forum before. The post made a mockery of all the roles that Qin Yi had played, saying that he had an empty pocket and his acting skills were embarrassing. It's all about the powder sucked by the face to be so red, maybe it still depends on the unspoken rules. Li Xin has always been worried about this. In his dream, he wanted his own artist to get a significant award to prove his acting skills. Therefore, there was a rumors in the circle that Xi Dao received the book of the Replicator project, and he immediately took Qin Yi's Ella went to the audition and did everything possible to win this opportunity. Now it seems that his approach is very wise, and Qin Yi's acting skills exploded in this movie, and he is amazingly handsome. He can already predict that after the film is officially released, there will be countless fans and sisters who will fall under the suit and pants of Emperor Qin. Zhenmin was filling up this spectacular scene, and suddenly a man's low voice sounded in his ears, what are the arrangements for tomorrow? Li Xin was startled, and looked at his artist angrily, I'm talking about the film festival, you are likely to win the most important actor award this year, why are you not excited at all? Qin Yi put down his brain and said indifferently, just let it be. I didn't play this movie for a trophy. Li Xin rolled his eyes, I know you are a super fan of this book, so I can't wait to do it for free, let's do it. The celebrity's acting is entirely based on personal preference, no matter how high the price or the favorable terms the other party offers, as long as he doesn't like it, then everything will be ignored. On the contrary, the stories he likes can be performed regardless of the pay, and it is rare to see an actor like him in the entertainment industry. Qin Yi ignored the blasting agent and asked in a low voice, what are the arrangements for tomorrow? Li Xin turned out the schedule and said, tomorrow you have to go back to Qin's house. Madam has already said hello. Qin Yi did not hesitate, push it. This can't work, Madam told me specifically, that you must go back to have a meal. Li Xin looked at him embarrassedly. Qin Yi rubbed his eyebrows with a headache, I must find another daughter or young master to introduce the person to me. That's enough. Li Xin shrugged, Madam is also thinking about you. Anyway, there is no notice for you in the next 3 days. You can relax and rest. Go back and deal with it tomorrow, otherwise my phone will be overwhelmed by her. Qin Yi was helpless, okay, I'll go back tonight. In the evening of the next day, Qin Yi returned to the Qin family's ancestral home. As soon as he walked in, he smelled the familiar aroma. Apparently his mother was cooking for him. Qin Yi changed his slippers with a complicated mood. Yu Lan immediately drew him to the restaurant with a smile on his face, and asked softly, "The new movie is released, have you been busy recently?" Qin Yi's, "It's okay." Yu Lan said, "I heard from Li Xin that all of your previous plays have been finished, haven't they?" Qin Yi's, "Yet." Yu Lan said, "Then next, do you have a few days of vacation?" Qin Yi raised his eyes to look at her, "Mom, just say anything." Yu Lan smiled and bent his eyes immediately, holding the back of her son's hand, and said softly, "Recently, I have helped you find a few good candidates. Regardless of family background, character and appearance, they are all selected from 1,000. Go and see you. You are 28 years old, so you can't just play movies and delay lifelong events." Sure enough, his mother told him to come back, 3 words not to urge the marriage. Qin Yi listened to her gentle persuasion, and then thought about the scene where he sat down blankly and had a blind date with a strange Omega. He only felt a splitting headache and his head was about to explode. Just trying to find an excuse to push away, at this moment, the communicator in his hand suddenly lit up, and it was a text message, "Mr. Qin, I don't know if you are free tomorrow, can I invite you to dinner?" It was Lin Luo, the nephew of the director of the West who I just met on the day of the premiere. Qin Yi made up his mind, then raised his head and said to his mother, "Mom, in fact, I already have a lover." Yu Lan looked at her son suspiciously, "Aren't you lying to me?" "Of course not, he just sent a message to ask me to eat together tomorrow." "Really?" Yu Lan looked ecstatic after winning the lottery. "What kind of person is it? Does he look good? What do the parents do?" Qin Yi was as big as a cow, and immediately interrupted her, "We are still getting along now, when the time is right, I will take him home to see you." "Okay, well, you are finally getting acquainted, I'll just wait for you to bring him back." Yu Lan smiled happily. "Yet?" Qin Yi replied vaguely, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After finally getting through in front of his mother, Lin Luo's news was really timely. Qin Yi was very impressed with the Lin Luo he saw at the premiere. Although the other party did not play in the entertainment industry, he was very decent on such occasions. He was personable and calm from beginning to end. His skin is white, his face is handsome, and his eyebrows are very hard to dislike. In addition, he seems to love to laugh very much, and his eyes always have a shallow smile, especially when he is talking to people, his smile is very kind. Qin Yi was distracted, and suddenly his mother's voice came in his ear, "What are you in a daze? Hurry up and give someone a message. You must remember that the message from your lover, if you are not particularly busy, within 10 seconds be sure to reply." "Oh! What about this?" Qin Yi picked up the communication device and responded with a message, "Tomorrow I happen to be free. I know a private bakery shop, the pastries are really delicious, take you to try it." "No problem." In fact, Qin Yi hated eating sweets, but his mother was sitting next to him, looking at him with a mother smile, he could only bite the bullet and continue acting, and quickly responded to the message sent by the other party. At the same time, the Imperial Palace. Luoning looked at the news and couldn't help but mutter to herself, "I heard that Qin Yi is very serious and difficult to approach. I don't have many friends in the entertainment industry. I thought he would simply refuse to meet him. I didn't expect that he would agree so simply." Kang Luan said seriously, "Master, every star has a company arranged for them. The way they usually show up in front of the public is not necessarily their true character. Maybe Mr. Qin is not as high as the rumors. Cold. Just like me, although my voice is a 7-year-old kid, I have a very calm personality." Luoning endured a smile and said, "Well, you make sense. Now the mechas are going to be refined one by one, and they also praise their calmness. However, Kang Luan's statement also makes sense. Luoning only understands what kind of person Qin Yi is. At present, the most impression of him is the performance in the movie The Replicator Project. The rest are all information found on the internet. In brief, Luoning knows nothing about his specific character. Qin Yi's family background information is even more difficult to find, obviously it was deliberately covered up. But it doesn't matter, you can always understand it slowly in the future. Thinking of this, Luoning sent a message to Qin Yi, "See you tomorrow at 12 o'clock noon. I will send you the address of that store." "Okay, see you tomorrow." Qin Yi responded quickly, almost within seconds. Luoning, who received the reply, raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and couldn't help but look forward to it. This was the first time he took the initiative to ask an alpha for dinner. Qin Yi might become his first alpha friend. Thinking of this, it seems that he is a little excited. Qin Yi slept until 11 noon the next day, and it was not until the alarm clock rang 3 times that he rubbed his sleepy eyes and woke up reluctantly to take a bath. The warm water washed away the exhaustion on his body. After the shower, the man finally became energetic, picked a casual outfit from the closet, and then carefully arranged his hair. The agent Li Xin saw him dressing up in the mirror and couldn't help asking, "Are you going out today?" "Well, see a friend." Qin Yi replied. "Friends?" Li Xin looked suspicious. "Several of your friends in the circle have been filming in the film and television base recently. Who are you going to meet?" "Friends outside the circle." Qin Yi didn't like to report everything to his agent. However, Li Xin is an old mother who has to worry about everything. He immediately became alert when he heard this, and held Qin Yi seriously. "You are a big star, and the paparazzi are eager to take photos of you. What kind of friends are they going to meet?" "It's just eating." "Don't worry, I will pay attention." Qin Yi leaned over and put on his leather shoes, and said indifferently. Li Xin looked at his back as he turned and left, always feeling that his right eyelid jumped sharply. Fortunately, this villa was just bought this year. Few people know about it and should not be followed. Li Xin can only comfort him like this, hoping that the paparazzi will not be so informed. At 12 o'clock noon, Qin Yi drove to the appointed address on time. This is a courtyard in the suburbs. The location is very hidden. If Lin Luo had not sent him a navigation, he would definitely not be able to find it. Qin Yi happened to meet each other at the door, and stepped forward to greet him. "Mr. Lin has been waiting for a long time." Luoning said politely, "I just arrived, so let's go in first." The two of them walked along the long corridor into the innermost hall of the courtyard. As soon as they entered the door, an old man with grey hair respectfully greeted him, "The hall." At Shang Luning's gaze, the old man immediately changed his words, "Master, you arrived." Luoning smiled and said, "Uncle Wu, I told you yesterday that I would bring a friend over." Uncle Wu bowed and said, "Yes, I have all the food you ordered, please sit down, please." Luoning took Qin Yi into a small room and closed the door smoothly. There is no luxurious decoration in the room. Instead, it is elegantly furnished. There is a landscape painting hanging on the warm-colored wall. There are some green plants in the house. The window on the other side of the garden is open, and you can smell the faint fragrance of flowers. There was no sound of footsteps around, and it was as quiet as if there were only two of them left in the whole world. Qin Yi sat down on the window seat and praised, "The environment here is good." Luoning sat opposite him, pouring him tea, and said, "After all, Mr. Qin is a big star, and I don't want to eat a meal and be watched by the paparazzi, so I chose such a hidden place to invite you." Qin Yi said, looking at the respectful attitude of the Uncle Wu just now, "Are you the owner of this store?" "Yes." Luoning smiled slightly, put the teapot back, and explained briefly, "I usually like to eat cakes, but my family don't like sweets very much. In the year of graduation, my father opened a house for me alone in a private bakery. In this way, Everything you eat can be cooked to your liking. Your father spoils you very much. Qin Yi said. Because I am his only Omega son. Luoning said. He is actually an Omega? Qin Yi was quite surprised when he heard this. In today's era, all Omegas have learned their skills, and inhibitors have long been widely used, so it is difficult to judge whether a person is an Omega from the outside. But under normal circumstances, Omega will try to conceal it after injecting inhibitors, for fear of attracting Alpha's coveting. Few people will self-destruct like him. Qin Yi raised his eyebrows lightly and said, "Are you really Omega?" Luoning smiled and asked, "Why should I lie to you?" Qin Yi didn't know what to say when he met his crooked eyebrows. Luoning said calmly, "I don't want to deliberately conceal that I am an Omega, because I don't think it's a shame to be an Omega, and there is no need to hide it. Just confess to you, I don't want you to have any misunderstandings. I am close to you. No other purpose, just admire your superb acting skills and want to make friends with you, so even if I am Omega, you don't have to be under psychological pressure." Qin Yi was willing to come to see this Lin Luo today because the other party happened to be the nephew of the director Lin Wuxi. The Western director gave him a lot of help during the filming. He will continue to cooperate with the Western director in the second part. Said it should give the director a face. I thought that the two of them were just polite and gossiping when they met. I didn't expect the other to be so frank when they met. This way, the embarrassment of guessing each other was avoided. Qin Yi glanced at him appreciatively, and said, "It's better to be frank. I'm already tired from acting. I don't want to have a meal and have to fight." Luoning smiled and said, "Can I call you Yi Zi? We are a little strange to each other, Mr. Qin and Mr. Linear." Qin Yi raised his lips, "Of course. What do I call you?" "Xiao Luo." The man called him Xiao Luo in a low voice, and Luoning's ears suddenly became hot. No one had called him this before, and the new nickname Qin Yi gave him sounds pretty good. Is this an exclusive nickname? Luoning took a deep breath, pretending to be calm and said, "You are a few years older than me, just call me Xiao Luo." Qin Yi took a sip from his teacup and changed the subject, "Listen to the director of the West, are you a loyal fan of the Clone Project?" Luoning nodded, "I really like this science fiction novel. I watched it 5 times. Qin Yi raised the corners of his lips slightly, "It's a coincidence, I also watched it 5 times. Luoning was a little surprised, "Really? You deliberately went to read the original work just to familiarize yourself with the role you want to play?" Qin Yi shook his head, "I watched the play 3 times before I took it, and after I took the script, I watched it twice. In fact, I am also a fan of this book." It was completely unexpected that Qin Yi was actually a book friend. Luoning suddenly had the excitement of meeting a bosom friend and hurriedly asked, "Then which character do you like best?" Qin Yi said, "Of course it is Xiao Wu. His experience is the most complicated, and his character is also the most full-fledged." Luoning's eyes lit up, "No wonder you can act Xiao Wu so vividly, I also like him the most." Qin Yi asked, "From the reader's point of view, what do you think of my acting in this movie?" Luoning thought for a moment, and then said seriously, "If the full score is 100, I can give you 95 points. The 5 points deducted is because there are 1,000 Hamlet in 1,000 people. You and the male I originally imagined the protagonist, looks different." Qin Yi asked curiously, "What does the protagonist in your imagination look like?" Luoning said, "The skin is pale, a bit sickly and beautiful." Qin Yi touched his tough profile, and said solemnly, "That's really different." The two smiled at each other. At this moment, Uncle Wu knocked gently on the door with the prepared pastries. Luoning finally remembered the meal, and he was busy and apologized, "I was so engaged in the chat, I almost forgot to let you taste the characteristics here. Let's first eat." The table was quickly filled with delicacies. In addition to pastries, there were some light side dishes. Qin Yi didn't like sweets at first, but the pastries made here are exquisite like handicrafts, with various beautiful patterns engraved on them. Each pattern is different, obviously someone specially designed it. Looking at these delicate gadgets, Qin Yi also had some appetite, and he picked up a piece of white pastry and put it in his mouth. What surprised him was that the pastry was sweet but not greasy, melted in the mouth, and you could taste the fragrance of flowers on the tip of your tongue, which was countless times more delicious than the sweets in his memory. Luoning smiled and asked him, "How is it? Is the taste okay?" Qin Yi nodded honestly, "It's delicious." Luoning also picked up a piece of pastry and tasted it. His mouth was not idle for a moment, and he swept away the large plate of pastries in a blink of an eye. Qin Yi couldn't help but think, this Omega seems to be a foodie. I had been busy with the crew for 3 consecutive months for filming, and today I came to this elegant environment with him to eat sweets. Qin Yi was also rare to relax, even the sun outside the window made people feel comfortable. After lunch, the two chatted about some recent new books. Qin Yi likes detective suspense novels. Luoning reads a wide range of books, so he recommended 2 books to him. Lost and Digital Code are new suspense stories recently. The plot is good. You can watch it when you have time. Look. Qin Yi nodded, "I'll buy it another day." Luoning glanced at the time, it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. "I thought that this meal might be embarrassing and cold, but I didn't expect the two of them to have so many topics in common." Luoning, who had chatted with Alpha for nearly 3 hours for the first time, was a little excited, and offered to offer, "I just bought it for you, just as a meeting gift." Qin Yi was idle anyway, so he agreed to this proposal. The two drove to a secluded bookstore. Qin Yi stayed outside to avoid being recognized by passers-by. Luoning went to the store to find the hardcover paper editions of these 2 books and bought them personally to Qin Yi. Then, Qin Yi took the book and said, "Thank you, I will collect it carefully." The two were about to turn around and leave, only to see a familiar person blocking their way. Qin Yi wanted to hide and it was too late, because the other party was staring into his eyes, and said excitedly, "What a coincidence." Qin Yi twitched the corners of his mouth and shouted reluctantly, "Mom." Yu Lan smiled and looked at Luoning walking beside him, "This is what you told me." Qin Yi hurriedly interrupted her, "Ah, Mom, I will send him home first. Although there are few people in this street, I have a special identity and I am afraid of encountering paparazzi." Yu Lan waved his hand sympathetically, "Go." Then he looked at Luoning gently, with a motherly smile, "Let Yi take you home for dinner another day, and Auntie will make you some good food." Luoning nodded politely, "Thank you, goodbye Auntie." After Yu Lan walked into the bookstore, Luoning asked, "Did your mother have any misunderstandings?" Qin Yi had a splitting headache. He just used the excuse of "I have a lover, I have an appointment to eat tomorrow" in front of his mother, but he was caught by his mother today. It's really self-inflicted and can't live. At Luoning's suspicious gaze, Qin Yi had to touch his nose and said, "Sorry, my mother has been urging me to get married. Seeing me with you, I thought we were, that kind of relationship." Luoning was taken aback, reacted quickly, smiled and said, "It's okay. Your popularity is booming. Marriage will definitely affect your career at this time. But the aunt cares about you too, don't mind. Being hit by her is better than being hit. It's better for the paparazzi to hit it." Qin Yi's. "You were wrong, and if she hit him, it would be a disaster." Qin Yi can already imagine the scene where his mother can't wait to prepare the bride price and go to propose marriage. He is not afraid of anyone, just the real mother. However, misfortunes never come singly. When he said goodbye to Luoning and returned to the villa, he didn't even have time to change his shoes. He heard the roar of his agent Li Xin, "Qin Yi, are you willing to be mad at me? Who are you going to eat with? How could it be photographed by paparazzi?" The light brain, as thin as a cicada's wings, flew directly from the air, and Qin Yi immediately reached out to catch today's headline: Is the popular actor Qin Yi secretly dating his lover? The corners of Qin Yi's lips twitched suddenly. When I opened the news, there was a picture of him and Xiao Luo. It may be that the paparazzi had a problem with the angle. Xiao Luo was standing next to him and was blocked by him. Can only see the fuzzy profile. On the contrary, his own face can be seen quite clearly, even the strands of hair are distinct. Moreover, he happened to take the book from Xiao Luo at that time. His face was full of joy, and his eyes were very gentle. Qin Yi's. What bad luck is going on today? But now I can't wash it by jumping into the river. Luoning is the only Omega Prince of His Majesty Nishizawa, so he is particularly fond of Luoning. Seeing Luoning was 25 years old, Nishizawa wanted to find a good alpha for his son. Major General Benjamin is the only son of General Lewis, the current commander of the Hydra Corps. He has performed very well in the younger generation of the military. General Lewis took the initiative to mention the marriage of the younger generations. Nishizawa took this matter in his heart and planned to let him the two children meet first. That afternoon, Nishizawa called Luoning to the study, and said in a gentle manner, "Luoning, you are not young anymore. You used to find all kinds of excuses to refuse, but this time the alpha introduced to you by the Emperor is young, and even if it is for the face of General Lewis, you should also meet." Luoning smiled and said, "Father, the whole empire now advocates the freedom of marriage, and the emperor brother was also free to fall in love back then. Can't I find an alpha I like?" Nishizawa looked at his son with interest. "But you stay in the palace every day to read, where can you find the alpha you like?" Luoning said seriously, "Actually, I already have someone I like, and I am planning to have a good relationship with him." "Oh." Nishizawa raised his eyebrows slightly. "Do you have someone you like?" Luoning smiled and nodded, "Yes, we met on the internet. He and I have a lot of common languages, and we have video chats every day. He is handsome, knowledgeable, and talented, and has a very gentle personality. I like talking to him. He is together." After listening to Luoning quietly, Nishizawa asked, "Who is he?" Luoning continued to speak nonsense seriously, "It is not convenient to tell you for the time being. He doesn't know that I am the second prince, and I have never confessed to him. I want to try to interact with him slowly. After a while, I will find if you have the opportunity to meet him, tell him face to face. At that time, if he is willing to be with me, I will take him back to the palace to see you. Is it all right, father?" Nishizawa glanced at his son with a faint smile. "Okay, the father will give you another half a month." After coming out of the study, Luoning finally breathed a long sigh of relief, thinking that after half a month, he would find an excuse to say that the other party didn't like him, that he was broken in love, heartbroken, and would not consider marriage for the time being, at least. Can it be delayed for another 2 or 3 years? Luoning was proud of his wit. Unexpectedly, as soon as his front foot left, His Majesty Nishizawa directly called the captain of the royal guard and ordered, "Check me the record of the second prince's recent entry and exit to the palace." The holographic screen soon appeared densely packed records. Nishizawa's sharp gaze scanned the time when Luoning left the palace and said thoughtfully, "On November 11, Luo Fei ran into him and came back very late. He said he was going to the film festival premiere, and on November 13 he went out to eat again. So it seems that he must have met someone at the premiere." Major General Carroll, the captain of the guard, said solemnly, "Your Majesty wants to investigate the second prince." Nishizawa said indifferently, "Zhiza Moruofu, he really thought he would fool me by making up casual stories. Carroll, you go and invite Emperor Ziwei over, I have something to ask him." Major General Carroll bowed and saluted immediately, "Yes, Your Majesty." It didn't take long for Ziwei to follow the captain of the royal guard back to the palace. He is Nishizawa's real brother, so you don't have to observe too many royal etiquette when you meet in private with Nishizawa. Nishizawa smiled and asked him to sit down in the garden. While eating fruit, he asked, "How is the emperor brother?" Ziwei sighed lightly, "It's almost the end of the year, and my new film is participating in the film festival, and I am very busy. What are you suddenly asking me to come back for? It's definitely not a simple greeting, right?" Nishizawa said bluntly, "I have some questions and want to ask the emperor to verify." On the day of the premiere on November 11th, did Luoning go to the scene? Ziwei didn't know that Luoning had compiled a story for His Majesty. His Majesty was investigating him. Naturally, there was no need to conceal this question. He nodded and said, "Yes, I gave him the ticket. He said that he is the Copy Man project. Faithful fans of this book should go to the premiere and see it first. Yet, staying in the palace every day, I'm afraid that he will be sick and go out for a walk." Nishizawa drank coffee slowly while pretending to ask casually, "He was at the premiere. Didn't know any friends of the same age?" Ziwei said, "He was able to chat with Yiziding, and he asked me for Yiziding's contact information." Nishizawa frowned slightly, "Who is Yizi?" Ziwei explained, "Oh, it's Qin Yi's, the star of this movie, a popular star in the entertainment industry." Qin Yi's. Zi's raised the corners of his lips, "I see." Ziwei was confused, "What do you know?" Nishizawa sighed, "It's nothing, it's just that the son is older, so it's hard to guess." Ziwei. Nishizawa then asked, "Brother Emperor, what do you think of Qin Yi's?" Ziwei had no choice but to tell the truth. Among the young generation of highly popular actors, Qin Yi is a rare one who never hype or play big names. He is serious and rigorous when filming, and he is also very polite in dealing with people and things. He has worked with him. All of the actors say that he is easy to get along with, and I like him a lot, so the actor of my next movie directly went to him, and the contract was signed, and I will enter the group for shooting in February next year." Nishizawa held the cup and thought, the emperor has such a high evaluation of him. It seems that this young man is indeed capable. Ziwei was puzzled, "You suddenly asked him what to do? I remember, you have never been interested in the entertainment industry, right?" Nishizawa smiled and said, "Since it is someone Luoning knows, I will just ask casually." Ziwei soon figured out the reason, and said, "Are you afraid that Luoning will be ruined by people in the entertainment industry?" "Don't worry, Qin Yi has a good character, and his reputation in the circle is also notoriously good. Luoning, it's okay to have a chat with him and make friends." Nishizawa nodded, "That's good." After Ziwei left, Nishizawa put down the coffee cup with a chuckle and said, "Luoning, I want to see how long your story can be made up." In the following week, Nishizawa did not find Luoning again, and seemed to have completely forgotten about it. After a week of calm and quiet, Luoning thought that his father was busy with government affairs and was not in the mood to care about him. As a result, on the evening of December 15th, Zai suddenly asked the chef to make many pastries that Luoning loved, and called Luoning there. Having dinner together, Queen Lin Yuan was also present. Luoning saw his father and immediately sat by his side. Everyone knows that His Majesty Nishizawa is a model of spoiling his wife that Alpha should learn from throughout the empire. Nishizawa handles political affairs very decisively, but most of the time he listens to his wife for housework, so it is the right way to please his father. Luoning diligently picked up vegetables for his father, while hesitating cold and asking for warmth. Lin Yuan became impatient when asked, and frowned, "You have something to ask me?" Luoning. Not knowing how to speak, Nishizawa glanced at him suddenly and whispered, "Luoning, you grew up, did your father scold you?" Luoning hurriedly smiled and said, "Not once. My father has always spoiled me, I know it in my heart." Nishizawa looked at him with a serious face, "Then why did you lie to your father?" Luoning's back stiffened slightly, and forced to calm down, "Father, how dare I lie to you?" When Lin Yuan heard this, he immediately raised his ears and glared at his son displeasedly. You really grow up and become more and more senseless. You dare to deceive your father and want to be beaten, right? Do you want me to take care of you myself? Luoning immediately shrank her neck. I really didn't lie to my father. Nishizawa looked at his son and smiled meaningfully. Then bring the person you like to him if there is such a person. Luoning. Luoning's scalp suddenly became numb when he met his father's deep gaze. He almost forgot. Although his father was very gentle and tolerant to the princes, the most annoying thing was that the princes tricked him. Once, the little prince secretly changed the score on the paper because he failed the exam. He was severely criticized by his father, and his father was given a kick to teach him. He stayed on the bed for a whole week and couldn't walk. The miserable look of tears on the little brother's face appeared in his mind, and Luoning's smile gradually stiffened. Qin Yi's idea is not a good idea at all, but a terrible one. Now, the father said so much. If Luoning admitted that he lied, he might really be caught and beaten. But if he continues to lie, where is he going to find such a favorite? After returning to the study at night, Luoning sent a message to Qin Yi with a bitter face. Your idea is not very useful. My father has to ask me to bring someone I like back to see him. If he knows I'm lying, he will definitely not will let me go. Qin Yi said with a calm face. My mother also urges me to take the person I like home for dinner. Luoning. Qin Yi's. Really feel sorry for the same disease. Do you want to keep warm? Thinking of this, Luoning suddenly boldly said, I have a very risky idea, I don't know if you agree with it. Qin Yi said, let's listen. Luoning said, since it is a lie, then just lie to the end. Anyway, you have a headache at home to promote marriage, and I am also very annoyed by those who come to propose marriage. It is better for us to pretend to be a couple temporarily, so that the parents on both sides can feel at ease. After they have stabilized, they will think of other ways. Qin Yi thought about it for a moment, nodded and said, I think it's feasible. The two hit it off immediately and happily became each other's marriage reminder. I thought that with this shield, I would be able to stay away for a few years at least, but I didn't expect that the plan would not be as good as the change. Once the show started, it would not end so well. The pits they dug for themselves could only be filled in by themselves. Chapter 6. On the evening of December 18th, Luoning took the initiative to meet Qin Yi at a private baking workshop outside the palace to discuss detailed plans as a shield. In the private room with good sound insulation, warm yellow lights hit the two of them, and Luoning, who had an appointment with Qin Yi in the middle of the night, was quite excited about discussing secret events. He looked at Alpha in front of him and said frankly, Yi, since we are going to be allies, I have to tell you my true identity. In fact, I am the second prince of the empire and the only Omega Prince of your Majesty. Qin Yi's. When we first met, Qin Yi was shocked by directly saying I am Omega. At the second meeting, he actually blew himself up and said he was the second prince. The Omega in front of him really has the talent of a word that makes one's jaw drop. Seeing Qin Yi's face stiff, Luoning said sincerely, sorry, I didn't hide it from you on purpose. Qin Yi immediately stood up and bowed in salute with a sullen face, His Royal Highness. Luoning waved his hand and said, you don't need to be so restrained. I'm not used to you like this. Seeing the other parties look serious, Luoning had to explain softly, I approached you because I really liked your acting skills. Later I found out that I could be with you. When we talked together, I was worried that you would alienate me after knowing my identity, so I kept hiding it. I never pretended to be a prince, and you don't have to be pressured to get along with me. You are still willing to recognize me as a friend. Meeting his expectant eyes, Qin Yi's couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly, of course I recognize. After all, Qin Yi was Luoning's first alpha friend, and Luoning didn't want to make the relationship stiff, so he took the initiative to confess. Fortunately, Qin Yi is very gracious and doesn't seem to be angry with him. Luoning asked anxiously, are you really not angry? Qin Yi said lightly, His Royal Highness took the initiative to confess to me and treat me as a friend. I have no reason to be angry. Luoning relieved himself, poured himself a cup of coffee, added 2 spoons of sugar, and said while stirring, Actually, since the year I graduated, my father has been having a headache with my marriage. I have pushed back countless times for this reason, but this time it is a bit difficult. I told him according to your idea that I have someone I like, but the father didn't believe me at all and insisted on letting me take someone back to see him. Luoning took a sip of the coffee and looked up at Qin Yi Zi. I also thought about it carefully before I wanted to join you in this scene. Because I have seen your acting skills with my own eyes, and only you. I can hide it from a shrewd person like my father. So, I really have to trouble you this time. Qin Yi suddenly felt the pressure, act in front of your majesty? Will it be too bold? It's okay. Luoning said confidently, as long as I act like it, and my father believes it, he won't urge me to meet with those alpha generals. Then, I will accompany you home again, without telling your parents. Over there, isn't this the best of both worlds? Qin Yi rubbed the cup lightly with his thumb, lowered his head thoughtfully, the solution sounds feasible, so I am afraid of accidents. What if they believe that we are lovers and urge us to have a wedding? Luoning smiled and said, You are a star and I am the prince. Naturally, our wedding cannot be done too hastily. In addition, we are not in a hurry to get married. We want to get along for a period of time and cultivate more relationships just like this to our parents. Reason, they should be able to understand. Qin Yi looked at him full of confidence and couldn't help asking, Are you sure you can? Luoning nodded immediately, I'm sure. Father is not an arrogant person, and he can still hear what I say. Qin Yi always felt that things would not be that simple, but this is indeed the best way at present. In the past few days, his mother's life-threatening serial phone calls have been kept on, and he is as big as a cow. He is thinking about whether to find an actor to pretend to be a couple to deal with it, but Luoning just came to the door. An agreement was reached logically. Luoning is the prince, this identity can indeed temporarily hold down the home side, and he is a member of the entertainment industry. The royal family also has to take into account his reputation. The two find an excuse to delay the wedding, at least 3 or 4 years is not a problem. Thinking of this, Qin Yi readily accepted Luoning's proposal, raised his glass and said, Your Highness, happy cooperation. Luoning also clinked glasses with him simply, happy cooperation. The two happily drank the red wine in their glasses. Luoning put down the wine glass and said with a smile, You should call me Xiaoluo, I'm more used to it. We will be allies on the same front in the future, so there is no need to be so polite. The crooked young man in front of him did not have the prince's arrogance at all. Qin Yi couldn't help smiling and said, Xiaoluo, I didn't expect that the person who talked to me about mystery stories every day was actually the second prince. Qin Yi suddenly felt that Luoning smiled pretty well. His Royal Highness the second prince really has an outstanding temperament and a gentle personality as in the legend. If your mother knew that her lover was His Royal Highness, she would probably drop her chin. After leaving the bakery, Qin Yi did not go home directly, but went to the last bookstore. He had read the book Luoning bought for him last time, so he wanted to buy 2 new novels published this month to Luoning as a gift. Of course Luoning liked the gift very much and accepted it happily, Thank you. You also said that we are friends, you are welcome. Qin Yi said in a gentle voice, Go back, or your majesty will be worried. Then let's keep in touch, and I will discuss with you if there is any movement on the father's side. Okay. Qin Yi watched Luoning leave, and then drove home. After returning to the villa, Qin Yi's just opened the door and heard the roar of his agent Li Xin again, Qin Yi's, how many times do you have to be photographed to behave? The same place, the same person, what do you do? Don't remember long. The familiar smart light brain flew across the sky, Qin Yi stretched out his hand to catch it with clear eyes, and opened it. Today's headline: Qin Yi is dating his secret lover late at night, with gentle demeanor and intimate action. In the photo, he and Luoning were standing under a warm yellow street lamp. With a smile on his face, he gave Luoning 2 books, and his eyes were really gentle. This time it was a matter of shooting angle. His face was taken very clearly under the illumination of a street lamp, while Luoning's face happened to be in the shadow of the backlight, and he could not see clearly. Tens of thousands of comments were quickly published on the internet. Just look at the height and body shape, and he is the same person last time. It seems that Qin Yi has a deep relationship with this person, and he will risk being photographed at this late hour. Is it dangerous to go out on a date? It's so sweet, I can smell the smell of dog food. Is that man holding a book? Last time Qin Yi was holding a book too. Giving a book is just a cover, dating is the purpose. When will you two get married and when will you have a baby? Qin Yi looked at these comments and felt that there was an electric drill stirring in his head. He put down his head with a headache, frowned and said, "Why is this a coincidence? Meet the paparazzi again." Li Xingqiaoshan rolled his eyes severely and said, "After the last scandal, I went to check it. It was said that some time ago there was a rumor that the big star Xiao Zhou had just moved to the villa area over there. Recently, paparazzi squatted against him every day. Grab evidence of his feet and step on 2 boats. In the end, you fell well and hit the door twice in a row to provide people with nasty materials. Those paparazzi are probably going to be so happy. From this point of view, I was really shot while lying down. The paparazzi squatted on Xiao Zhou's gossip on that street, but instead of squatting down on Xiao Zhou, they captured 2 consecutive pictures of him and Luoning." Qin Yi frowned and sent a text message to Luoning, "It's another scandal, I won't respond, and you don't mind too much." Unexpectedly, Luoning was not only not angry, but happily said, "It doesn't matter, this is also the iron proof of our private dating. With these scandals, it will be easier for the elders to believe that we are lovers, and the plan will be implemented more smoothly." Qin Yi was stunned. "Are you so happy to be photographed by paparazzi?" Luoning said, "Think about never being urged on blind dates in the future, once and for all, don't you feel happy?" Smiley face. Qin Yi looked at the crooked smiling face he sent, couldn't help but chuckle, and replied, "It's good if you are happy." At this moment, my mother, Yu Lan, sent another video call request, and Qin Yi reluctantly connected. "Mom, should you ask me about the photo?" Yu Lan smiled and said, "Since you entered the entertainment industry, my mother has been paying attention to those entertainment gossip forums every day. Of course, I saw the scandal as soon as possible. Tell me, how are you and your lover doing? The person in the photo, is it him?" Qin Yi nodded, "Well, it's him. We are fine, and we will bring him back to see you another day." Yu Lan's eyes flashed in excitement, "Really? What flavor does he like? I personally make him a table of delicious food." Qin Yi said, "He loves sweets." Yu Lan was busy searching for dessert recipes immediately, and Qin Yi hung up the phone with a sigh of relief. Li Xin looked at the corners of his lips, almost thinking that he was dazzled. He stretched out his hand and rubbed his eyes vigorously. He couldn't believe it and said, "Yi Zi, have you really fallen in love recently?" Qin Yi raised his eyebrows and said, "What do you think?" Li Xin jumped up from the sofa and rushed to him with a pale face, "Don't scare me. You are now at the peak of your career, and you can't ruin your future because of impulse. You should be very clear, like once you have a lover, there will be a large number of people who want to get rid of fans." Qin Yi interrupted the agent's nagging, "Don't worry, I'm not in a relationship, I'm just dealing with my mother." Li Xin secretly breathed a sigh of relief and thought, Qin Yi is still very discreet in his work, and he certainly won't be foolish. He couldn't think of it, his celebrities would not fall in love, his celebrities will get married directly soon. Chapter 7. After Luoning returned to the palace that night, he directly asked Major General Carroll, the captain of the royal guard, to stop him. When he was puzzled, he saw his father walking up to him and asked with a smile, "Luoning, it's so late. Where have you been?" Luoning lowered his head and hesitated. Go and buy 2 books. Nishizawa turned on his portable light brain and zoomed in on the headlines to show him, "Is this photo familiar?" Luoning was calm. "My father is so busy at ordinary times, why is he paying attention to these gossip scandals in the entertainment industry?" Nishizawa said, "Because father thinks this person in the photo looks a bit like you. What he holds in his hand happens to be the 2 books you are holding now." Seeing that the plan was successful, Luoning immediately pretended to be horrified after being dismantled, and quickly hid the book behind him, saying, "My father is joking, how can I be with the big stars of the entertainment industry and be photographed by the paparazzi? Maybe it's just a coincidence." Zeiss raised his eyebrows and said, "Don't pretend, is Qin Yi's the one you like?" Luoning's ears were slightly red, and he lowered his head and said nothing. Nishizawa said, "Because of his special status, you made up a story about a relationship with a netizen." Luoning was silent for a moment, and then he plucked up the courage, looked up at his father, and said seriously, "Father, Yi is a very personal star after all. I dare not be with him publicly, and I am worried that you can't do it. Accepting his identity as an actor, so I lied to you that the person I like met on the internet. Sorry, I didn't mean to hide it from you. I was really dating Yi." The expression of the second prince was so sincere. Nishizawa looked at it carefully for a long time, but couldn't see what was wrong, so he had to say softly, "No matter what his identity or background, as long as you like it, I will not separate you. The key question is..." Nishizawa paused, looked at his son deeply, and lowered his voice, "Do you really like him?" Luoning immediately nodded, "Of course. Yi is knowledgeable, gentle, and caring about me. We share a lot of topics together. I really like him. So, father, please introduce me to other alphas. I don't want to see at all. They." Last sentence is the key. Nishizawa smiled slightly, "Take him to show his father." "Don't worry, I won't embarrass him." Luoning had been prepared for a long time, so he agreed, "Okay, father." That night, Luoning sent a video to Qin Yi, smiled in a good mood and said, "You're done, my father wants to see you." Qin Yi said, "What do I need to prepare?" Luoning thought about it carefully, and it was really not easy for Qin Yi to visit the house empty-handed for the first time. If he wanted to make a good impression on his father, he naturally had to choose what he wanted. After a moment of contemplation, Luoning thought of a good idea, and said, "My father likes to collect oil paintings of all ages. Bring him a painting. As for my dad, I fell in love with drinking tea recently. Give him buy a set of jade tea sets, you can also get it." Qin Yi asked, "What about you? I have to bring you a gift, too." Luoning said, "Of course my favorite is, you know." Qin Yi smiled, "Well, the book is out of print, I will prepare these tomorrow." Luoning said, "Send me your account and I will transfer money to you." Qin Yi couldn't laugh or cry, "No, we are already allies. As long as the plan is successful, it doesn't matter how much money we spend." Hearing what he said, Luoning also felt the same. As long as he could stabilize the elders on both sides this time, let alone spend some money, no matter how big the price was, it was worth it. 3 days later, Qin Yi prepared a gift and officially visited the palace. He deliberately picked a dark suit and put it on with a Loki striped tie. The shoes were also polished slenderly and his hair was rearranged. The whole person looked extraordinarily energetic. After all, he was going to meet the lovers. "Father, you can't dress too casually." Luoning took Qin Yi to the backyard of the palace. From a distance, he saw a child practicing martial arts with a decent movement. Luoning introduced, "That's my youngest brother, Luo Sheng, who is rather naughty." As he was talking, Luo Sheng walked over here and said in a puzzled manner, "Brother Second Emperor, who is this?" Luo Ning said generously, "His name is Qin Yi's, my boyfriend." Luo Sheng's face immediately wrinkled, and he stared at Qin Yi's hostilely, "Boyfriend? How can he be worthy of you?" Luo Ning was a little embarrassed, and looked at Qin Yi's apologetically, "Children are ignorant, don't take it to your heart." Qin Yi smiled slightly, knelt down and looked at Luo Sheng's eyes, and whispered, "Your emperor brother is indeed very good, but I am not bad. I will treat him sincerely and do my best to take care of him. When you are young, you will understand when you grow up. As long as two people truly love each other, their identity and background are not a problem." Luo Sheng was stunned, and was stunned by the firm gaze of the King Qin. Qin Yi entered the role very quickly, and Luo Ning couldn't help but praise his acting skills. At this moment, a low voice suddenly came from behind, "Your Majesty Second Prince, Your Majesty wants you to take Mr. Qin to the living room to find him." It was Major General Carroll, the captain of the Royal Guard. Behind him stood 2 rows of tall officers wearing pure white uniforms. Everyone had guns in their hands. Once someone was unfavorable to the princes, they might become them in the next second. Undead under the gun. The first time he saw the royal guards up close, Qin Yi felt pressured in his heart, but on the surface he maintained his calmness and demeanor. Under the solemn of the guards, he walked into the living room with Luo Ning. This small living room is usually used by Your Majesty to meet some officials in secret. At this time, Your Majesty and the Queen are sitting on the main seat, drinking tea in a leisurely manner, the carpets under your feet are not stained, and the room is quiet and needles are dropped. Smellable. Luo Ning stood still in front of the two, smiling and introducing, "Father, this is the Qin Yi's I told you." Qin Yi immediately bowed and saluted politely, "Your Majesty, Queen." Lin Yuan opened his eyes and looked at the young man in front of him carefully, thinking, his son has a good vision, this young man is very handsome. On the contrary, Zeiss, who has read many reports about Qin Yi's these days, is familiar with Qin Yi's face, pointed to the seat next to him, and said indifferently, "Since Luning likes someone, he is also in front of us. Don't be so restrained, sit down." Qin Yi took the initiative to take out the gift he had brought, and respectfully said, "I heard that Your Majesty has studied oil painting very much. I happened to buy a pair of famous works by coincidence some time ago and bring it to Your Majesty. I wonder if you will like." What he brought was a colorful oil painting, which was a scene from a royal birthday party. The details were very realistic. It was created by a well-known painter more than 500 years ago. The painter has passed away long ago. In the auction, the high price of tens of millions was sold, and Qin Yi's was such a big hand, even Luo Ning was shocked. But after all, Nishizawa is Your Majesty. Seeing such an expensive painting, his expression is still calm, and he smiled slightly and said, "Thank you, you are really interested." Qin Yi followed and took out another gift. Luo Ning said that the Queen loves tea, "I bought a tea set for you. This is not an ordinary tea set, but made of fine white jade. The whole set of tea set is white and flawless, crystal clear and flawless. The value of a cup alone exceeds the most precious white jade jewelry." Lin Yuan liked it very much when he saw it, and said with a smile, "You are so sensible that you also brought us gifts." Qin Yi said politely, "This is what it should be." Lin Yuan pointed to the exquisite paper box Qin Yi's had brought. "What is this?" "This is for Luo Ning." Qin Yi turned his head, looked at Luo Ning gently, and said, "This set of books was published 100 years ago, and it was out of print for a long time. I heard Luo Ning said that he was looking for it. I tried to search the country and found it with good luck." Luo Ning carried the book excitedly, "Great, this is my favorite version, thank you Yi Zi." Qin Yi said softly, "You don't have to be polite with me." The two of them had gentle eyes and joyful faces, and they looked at each other affectionately, showing their affection in front of their elders, and it was quite realistic. Nishizawa smiled lightly and said, Yizi, you worked hard to prepare gifts for us. It seems that you really like Luning, right? Qin Yi didn't hesitate, of course, otherwise I wouldn't have the courage to come to see your majesty. Nishizawa said, Luoning is my favorite second prince, won't you feel pressure because of his identity? Qin Yi glanced at Luoning and said, although Luoning is the second prince, in my heart, he is just Luoning, the lover I want to protect and cherish. When I met him, I didn't know him. The identity of the prince is the only person I like, and it has nothing to do with his identity. Qin Yi turned his head and calmly met His Majesty Nishizawa's gaze. Your Majesty can rest assured, I have enough confidence to take care of him. Nishizawa nodded appreciatively, okay, I'll be ready for your marriage. I will have an interview with your parents another day to discuss the details of the wedding. Qin Yi's. Luoning. The backs of the two of them stiffened at the same time. This is not the same as the stated plot. Fortunately, Luoning reacted quickly enough and immediately said, Father, this is the first time I met, how come we have discussed the wedding? No matter how good the mouth is, it is not as reliable as the actual action. Zai smiled slightly, and the gaze looking at Qin Yi suddenly became sharp, saying every word, since Yi says he likes Luoning very much. Then take practical actions to make him your legal lover, cherish him and protect him, and the best way to protect a person is to marry him, right? Qin Yi's. Why did your majesty play the cards completely inconsistent with common sense? Nishizawa stared sharply at Qin Yi and said, why, haven't you ever thought of marrying Luoning? It is impossible for Qin Yi to say, I never thought, we are just acting. But facing His Majesty's sharp gaze, he could only bite the bullet and said, of course I think. But, the second prince is noble, and I can't wrong him. Therefore, regarding the wedding, I will discuss with my parents, make good preparations, and try my best. It's grand. Nishizawa smiled and said, don't worry about this. I've already prepared Luoning's wedding. Luoning. Is the father looking forward to sending him out of the palace? Are you even ready for the wedding? Luoning calmed down quickly and softly persuaded, Father, although Yizi and I like each other, after all, getting married is a big deal. We shouldn't be too hasty. We want to get along for a while and cultivate our relationship. Nishizawa smiled and said, isn't it okay to get along with each other upright after marriage? Luoning's mind quickly turned, and another reason came to mind, Yizi is an entertainment star after all. Now is the peak of his career. If he gets married suddenly, his popularity will be greatly damaged. I don't want Yizi it's for me to affect my career. So, wait for a 2-year postponement for the wedding. Nishizawa interrupted him, then get the certificate first. Qin Yi's. Luoning. Nishizawa smiled slightly and looked at the two of them and said, don't you like each other very much and want to be together? As the prince, Luoning always goes out to the palace to date people in the middle of the night, and the influence is not good. It's better to hurry up. Register for the certificate, and father will hold you a wedding secretly, and you can live together officially in the future, and you don't have to worry about dating privately and being photographed by the paparazzi. Zais paused and looked at Qin Yi's. Yizi, what do you think? Qin Yi's, I really can't refute it. What is playing with fire? This is a living example. Chapter 9 In a blink of an eye, it's Christmas Eve. The Empire's annual Nolan Film Festival will be held on Christmas Eve. The box office of the Replicator project starring Qin Yi has exceeded 4 billion, and the major forums have received rave reviews. The audiences admired the superb acting skills of one person playing 5 roles, and he was indeed nominated for the annual Best Actor award. The Nolan Film Festival is the largest and most influential film festival in the Empire. This year's film festival is equally competitive, especially for the Best Actor award. 5 people were nominated except Qin Yi's. The other 4 are also super popular stars. For example, Xiao Zhou, the leading actor in the literary film The Corner in the first half of the year, has no less fans than Qin Yi's, and is also Qin Yi's biggest competitor. Only Xiao Zhou was caught in a scandal recently. The paparazzi squatted against him near the villa area. They didn't squat down to him, but they bumped Qin Yi's into the head. The two met at the venue, and the seats were arranged next door. It was really Heaven's Road is narrow. When Xiao Zhou saw Qin Yi's, he approached with a smile, lowering his voice and saying in his ear, "The paparazzi squatted against me at the back door of the villa area. You actually bumped into me twice in a row. You are unlucky enough." Qin Yi then helpless, "It's really bad luck recently." Xiao Zhou asked curiously, "Who is your little lover?" Qin Yi frowned, "Don't talk nonsense, he is not an ordinary person, you can't afford it." Qin Yi gets a headache when it comes to this topic. He and Luoning originally intended to pretend to be a couple to stabilize their parents, but they did not expect their parents to urge them to have a wedding. His mother had already prepared the betrothal gift and agreed with His Majesty to go to the palace on Christmas Day to formally propose marriage. He was worried about what to do tomorrow. Seeing that Qin Yi's face was ugly, Xiao Zhou comforted, "No one will remember this kind of scandal in a few days, and you don't need to care." Qin Yi let out an obviously he didn't want to talk anymore, and Xiao Zhou didn't say much. On the surface, these two super popular stars have always been in a competitive relationship. In fact, Xiao Zhou is one of Qin Yi's friends in the entertainment industry. However, Qin Yi didn't want to tell him about Luoning. The fewer people who knew about it, the better, so as not to get out of the way. The awards ceremony proceeded in an orderly manner, interspersed with the performances of many major singers. Luoning did not go to the scene, but watched the live broadcast at the palace. He had no interest in the previous awards. It was not until the award of Best Actor was awarded that Luoning immediately cheered up and stared at the holographic screen in front of him. The host said loudly, "The best actor at the 28th Nolan Film Festival is." She deliberately sold her off, and then she opened the envelope and said with a smile, "The Replicator Project, Qin Yi's." Qin Yi stood up from his seat, shook hands with the people around him congratulating him in turn, and hugged Xiao Zhou, before turning to the big stage. He was wearing a black tuxedo today, and the tailored tuxedo made him look taller and handsome. Under the spotlight on the spot, Qin Yi's face was magnified on the screen, and the man's facial features were as handsome as a god, especially the tall nose and deep eyes, which were unforgettable. The barrage was immediately raised in the webcast room. Mom asked me why I was watching the live broadcast on my knees, because I saw the male god. My male is handsome and crying. Is the male still lacking a robot cleaner at home? Husband, look at me. He is obviously my husband. Rivals, draw your sword. Seeing the crazy barrage of Qin Yi's fans, Luoning couldn't help but laugh out. If you knew that your male was going to be dragged into the tomb of marriage, would you drown me in one spit? At the awards ceremony, after receiving the golden trophy from the award-presenting guests, Qin Yi picked up the microphone and said a few words of thanks. "Thank you, the Director of the West, for giving me this opportunity to challenge the difficulty of playing 5 roles at the same time. The scene, thank you all for your help in the filming process, thank the agency for taking care of me, and also thank the fans for their continued love and support. I am very happy to get this trophy, but for me, this trophy is just starting point. I will continue to spur myself to bring you more and better works in the future." After that, Qin Yi bowed deeply to the audience. The scene was suddenly overwhelmed by enthusiastic applause and crazy screams, and the barrage area had been brushed by the male god and husband so that they could not see clearly. After Qin Yi won the Best Actor, Zai Wei followed him to win the Best Director award, and the box office and word-of-mouth movie The Replicator Project became the biggest winner this year. At the same time, he won the Best Editing, Best Music and the Heavyweight Best Film of the Year award. As a book fan, Luoning is of course happy that this adapted film can be a big success. Unfortunately, he was only happy for less than 5 minutes. His Majesty Nishizawa's text message popped out, "Tomorrow Yizi's parents will come to the palace to officially propose marriage. Please be prepared and don't be rude in front of your elders." Luoning's mouth twitched, "Can I not go?" After the award ceremony that night, Director Ziwei took the initiative to invite everyone in the crew of the clone project to dinner, and gave everyone a big red envelope to celebrate the film's box office breaking 4 billion. The atmosphere of the celebration banquet was warm, and Qin Yi, who was the lead actor, rarely drank some wine. On the way back, Li Xin drove, while Qin Yi sat in the back with his eyes closed. Li Xin thought he was drunk and didn't bother him, but when he turned the corner, Qin Yi suddenly asked, "Li Xin, if I told you that I might get married soon, what would you do?" Li Xin almost slammed into the navigation screen, hurriedly parked the hovering car aside, turned around and glared at him, "Are you drunk and confused?" Qin Yi opened his eyes with a serious expression, "I'm not drunk, I'm serious." Seeing that he didn't seem to be joking, Li Xin immediately cuckolded in his heart, and said in a nervous manner, "What's the matter?" Qin Yi was silent for 5 seconds before explaining in a low voice, "Lin Luo, the nephew of Zidao I met at the premiere last month, is the real identity of His Royal Highness the Second Prince. We wanted to pretend to be a couple and hide from our parents. It turned out to be self-defeating. Your Majesty asked us to get married as soon as possible. Tomorrow my parents will go to the palace to make an official proposal to discuss the details of the wedding." Li Xin. "I really want to catch 2 naive guys over and have a fight. Don't they know what playing with fire is?" Qin Yi also knew that he was wrong, touched his nose awkwardly, and said, "You are my agent, and I don't want to hide it from you. If I really get married in the future, I will ask you to do more in all aspects and don't let the news leak. Get out." Li Xin slammed his head hard with his hands, "What did I do to meet an artist like you? Can I resign tomorrow?" Qin Yi hurriedly stopped him, "Don't. You brought me out. What should I do if you leave?" Li Xin rolled his eyes and thought about it for a moment, and then said, "There are so many stars in hidden marriages, and I can settle it with the media. But, Yizi, are you really sure you want to get married so hastily? The other party is His Royal Highness, you marry this great into the door. Have you ever thought that it is easy to send God to God? As far as I know, the second prince is His Majesty's most beloved son, and he is not something you can afford." Qin Yi said, "I know that if I have to fake marriage, I will try to keep a distance from him after marriage." Li Xin still felt that it was inappropriate to do so, but once Qin Yi's made a decision, it was useless to persuade anyone. He can only pray that the 2 great gods don't make any major incidents, because his agent is about to have a heart attack. After returning to the villa that night, Qin Yi took the initiative to send Luoning a video call request, which Luoning also quickly answered. The two looked at each other across the screen, and at the same time saw a strong helplessness in each other's eyes. Luoning quickly adjusted her expression and smiled, "Congratulations on winning the actor award." "Thank you." Qin Yi didn't like to make rounds and corners, and went straight to the topic, "What are you going to do tomorrow?" Luoning awkwardly scratched her hair, "I don't have any good ideas. My father just told me that your parents will officially propose marriage tomorrow, and both parents will discuss the details of the wedding. Do you think we can use any excuses to delay it?" Qin Yi calmly analyzed and said, "Now, we have 2 roads in front of us. One is to rein in the cliff. Before things get worse, we simply admit that we are acting and apologize to your Majesty and my parents in person." Luoning immediately denied, "No, my dad will take my skin off." Thinking about the bruise and swollen face of the little brother who was beaten, Luoning felt lingering in his heart. Now that he admits that he is lying, isn't he looking for death? Qin Yi also knew that this road would not work, and now it has alarmed the elders of both sides, and it really does not end well. He sighed helplessly, looked at Luoning and said, then there is only the second option to use the plan, continue the performance, and hold a wedding according to the wishes of the elders. Luo Ning. Qin Yi's. The two stared wide-eyed across the screen, most afraid of the sudden silence of the air. The awkward silence lasted for a long time, and Luo Ning coughed slightly and said, "Can I only get married?" Qin Yi asked, "Do you have a better way?" Luo Ning, "No." Qin Yi paused and asked in a low voice, "Will you marry me then?" Luo Ning touched his nose and smiled awkwardly, "I never planned to get married, but at this point, we are all riding a tiger and we can only calculate it. The wedding is just a formality. After the marriage, I can move out of the palace. It can also save a lot of trouble. After marriage, we still live our own lives without interfering with each other. It seems that there is no impact." Qin Yi simply said, "In this case, let's get married by agreement. Holding a wedding banquet will give parents peace of mind. After marriage, don't they live by themselves? The two have their own lives, and their parents can't monitor them 24 hours a day, and once they get married, they don't have to worry about being urged to marry again." Thinking of this, Luo Ning nodded and said, "Okay, then get married by agreement." Qin Yi asked, "Do you have any requirements for the agreement that needs to be followed after marriage?" Luo Ning thought for a while, and said, "It's not justified, so let's sign a prenuptial agreement." He quickly wrote a prenuptial agreement and signed it by mail. Qin Yi opened it and looked at it, and it was really organized. First, the two parties are only a nominal couple, and each will have its own after marriage, without interfering in each other's life and communication. Second, keep a friendly distance. You can hold hands if necessary, but you can't have more intimate actions. Third, when you need to visit your parents or attend activities, both parties need to do their best to play the role of lovers. Fourth, if either party meets true love and wants to end the marriage and ask for divorce, the other party must not find excuses to stop it, and must break up peacefully. On the surface, this agreement is very fair, taking into account many details after marriage. In case of true love in the future, the agreement marriage can also end peacefully, which seems very reasonable. Qin Yi's gaze scanned the terms of the agreement again, and he simply printed it out and signed it. Both of them thought that with this agreement, they could not interfere with each other and live their own lives after marriage. But they overlooked one point: the most uncontrollable thing in the world is the human heart. How can two people get along day and night without getting over the thunder pool at all? More importantly, Luo Ning only wrote 4 agreements, but didn't write them clearly: how to penalize a breach of contract.